Hey, what's going on, friends and DJs? Been a minute. Hope you're all doing well. Glad to be back. Was out at Pulse Chain Tour last week. Had the opportunity to meet up with some folks. Had a chance to hang out with Zenith from the DGen Roundtable. That was a lot of fun. Spent a fair amount of time catching up with him. Also met Sam, Will's brother, out there from the DRT team as well. Had some pleasant chats about paradiddles and percussion and the like. Also, let's see, who else did I get to meet? SJ, of course, Charlie DCC running around, Black Hexagon. I'm sure I'm going to forget a few people. Apologies if I do. Let's see, Crypto Coffee, Hexy Bastard. Side note, do not let Hexy Bastard pick the bar you are going to visit. RH Max and RG3 and some other founders and a bunch of other cool project leads and the like. So I had a real pleasant chat with RG3 on the side, and I appreciated effectively one of his main speeches at the tour, and that was, hey, for the Pulse and Hexagon community, kind of put the claws away a little bit. Y'all have survived, you've been through some shit, and you've proven that you've got some staying power on that front. So you don't need to batter other individuals and other folks in the community. Potentially, in order to grow, and certainly in order to grow that community, you need to continue to onboard some people and bring them in. Long story short is, when it comes to Hex, Pulse Chain, and the like, it doesn't have to be an or, it can be an and. I can like Richard Hart tokens, I can like Pulse Chain, I can like Hex. Hell, I can even like Hex on Ethereum, or whatever the final name the community ends up settling on will be. And I can like things like interoperability solutions like Polkadot, TIA, or Chainlink. Sure, people may have certain ethical considerations or like. Point there, though, is at the end of the day, there are many potential paths to prosperity. Certainly, Richard Hart offers a very compelling one through his solutions, but it doesn't have to be the only one. Anyway, all right, and I see the man, the myth, the legend here. Boogie, what's going on, brother? I'll give you a shout later this evening after I get off stream, man. And so, yeah, glad to be back. I did think I caught like a little bug or something on the airplanes. Could have been catching something at the bar of Hexy's choice on that front. If you know, you know. If you don't, I'll protect the innocent on that front. But anyway, let's get down to it. Let's talk about a few different things we got going on in the background here. Let me share out my screen and we'll get rocking here. So as we continue to work our way through the cycle, we get closer and closer to the halving. In this particular case, I like using the BitBo halving clock. It's just one I started with, so I just try to keep it consistent on that front. Certainly not the only halving clock. And the halving clock, for those maybe a little less familiar with it, it's really an estimation of when we're going to hit. It's not guaranteed science at this point in time. A lot of that has to do with how quickly we're ripping through blocks. I've seen it actually as early as April 15th, and I've seen it as late as April 25th. So let's just say plus minus roughly a 10-day spread, somewhere between the 15th through the 25th of April, we're likely going to see the Bitcoin halving. So it gets closer and closer. I know historically there's typically a bit of a pre-halving retrace on that. One might think we're somewhat in that space on that front. So as far as Bitcoin news, one of the interesting things that caught my attention over the last few days as I was catching up on some crypto Twitter news is Bitcoin ETFs are 58% of the way to flipping gold ETFs for total assets. So in 8 weeks, roughly speaking, of Bitcoin ETFs being in existence, it's accumulated roughly, I'm just going to round up, $59 billion of assets under management, so to speak, under the ETFs, whereas gold ETFs are sitting at around 98.17. We'll call it 98 and a fifth for some quick, easy numbers. So basically, within a few months, we are on track for Bitcoin ETFs to flip gold ETFs. Pretty interesting, pretty exciting. I look forward to seeing how this aspect of the crypto space continues to develop relative to normie finance and boomer finance as they continue to trickle in on that front. So for a number of viewers and folks in the community, we know we came here to the crypto space to try to make some mad gains. And of course, we can all appreciate the tech, but we're generally here to make some mad gains in the grand scheme of things. So why is that? Well, I think a lot of us have had a sense that stuff is hard out there. Life is hard out there, and houses are very unaffordable for huge portions of the US population. Having kids are really expensive. We've all seen the price of goods go up. I don't know anyone who's gone food shopping or hell, even just eating out. I typically like to eat out on a Friday night with some friends or at least get a pizza if I'm sticking around the house or something to that effect. And man, like some of that stuff is doubled. I remember being able to feed myself relatively comfortably on a Friday night with something like DoorDash or Uber Eats and Christ almighty, it's like 40 plus bucks, $50 just to get like a pizza and a side these days through DoorDash or like. And sure, I get it, wages, fuel expenses, all this goes into it. Long story short, the number has gone up. So we are looking for things where we can get our assets or multiply our dollars so that our numbers go up to offset the really. I know you're going to hear a lot about inflation, and certainly we've heard plenty about it. And as we're in an election year, I expect to hear a lot more about it. The real issue is currency debasement. It's inflation in as far as I'm concerned, is south of the currency debasement. And so Bitcoin and other aspects of cryptocurrencies provide a hedge against that. Anyway, why is this such a huge concern for a lot of us? I don't know how many folks out here are familiar with the US debt clock. The number just has been skyrocketing for quite some time. And just look at how fast the numbers are rolling over. This is without even getting into stuff like unfunded liabilities. So for those not familiar with it, basically all the debt obligations which don't have sufficient funds set aside to pay for them on a state level, on a federal level, these can be things like pension plans and retirement plans for government entities and districts. Add that on top of it, and we're probably talking at least $100 trillion of collective debt, if not more. I haven't looked at it recently. I've seen it as high as 150 in some studies. Regardless, the true number we need to be concerned with is larger than this. And some of the things I've read have indicated that we've basically added 1 trillion in debt in the last 100 days. I'm sure I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but there's a Wharton business professor. I believe it's Joao Gomez. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. Apologies. I'm assuming that's Portuguese. Not the best at that one. But he raised some flags that the debt to the GDP will double over the next 20 years. And on current track, I've read some other considerations and concerns that we won't be able to rely on countries like Japan, China, and other entities to buy up our treasuries. Regardless, all of it's not looking that hot, not looking so great. So, okay, what's potentially their game plan? We talked a little bit about the debt. We talked a little bit about currency debasement. Well, one might think, hey, we'll just print our way out of it. And so on that front, how would they potentially leverage aspects of that to further elevate a level of control? Well, Tom Emmer called out here this particular concern of his recently on Twitter that the Fed gave this to Tom Emmer's staff this week while they were presenting to Congress. Look way down here at the bottom bullet point, central bank digital currency. I don't think anyone should be terribly surprised about that as a possibility. So, all right. What are some of the game plans and the like? Well, we talked a little bit about Bitcoin halving and again, as we're looking at things in the crypto space. Right now, crypto market cap as of this moment sitting at around 2.6 trill, give or take. And Bitcoin, the granddaddy of them all, sitting at around 1.3 trill. I know the crypto mindset team, Charlie and Miguel, shout out to them, have indicated that once Bitcoin gets to around 1.2 trill in market cap, it's probably a buying opportunity. So if you've got some funds you've been letting sit on the side and the like, or hopefully you've got some dry powder, odds are we're going to continue to dip a little bit here, potentially on the token. I know Solana has been a little bit of an outsized performer in that regard. The opportunities will present themselves. Historically, Bitcoin tends to show around a 20% retrace or greater pre-halving on that. So you will certainly have some opportunities to throw some more cash in the market. It's game time, folks. Be serious about this. Let's keep your cash flow up or find a way to increase it and continue to DCA your way in. So I like to take a look at a few different things here as I've kind of evolved the way I look at the crypto market over time, be it through my own personal education or my own experiences. Again, depending on what you're looking at, you'll see some different numbers floating around. Let me kill this volume indicator. So on this one here, I'm looking at the weekly for the market cap here, and you can see we've got a red week on this one. Let me flip this over to the daily. And we've had several red days kind of indicating we're sliding down here. Potentially, maybe we're going to hopefully hit some level of support around 2.3 trill, just looking at some quick potential support resistance levels on the daily. I'm going to continue to DCA, and I've already started a drip feed in on a few of the tokens I've been looking at, and I'll continue to potentially accelerate that. So the lower it goes, the harder I buy. I hope to see you do the same. I know some folks may not be in quite the same position, and perhaps some of the individuals here are waiting for certain sniper shots. I was talking with some folks in a few different chats. They had certain numbers in mind, like, oh, I'm going to go buy Illuvium when it gets to, $110 or $100 or below. My counter to that was, well, what if it never hits that number? Okay, if it goes a little south, and this can be any token, it doesn't have to be Illuvium. If the token you're looking at starts to dip, maybe you should have a set schedule DCA in every Saturday afternoon. $20-25 goes in. Hey, appreciate the support, Nate. The ascending man himself passing through. Hopefully it was a fun date with your lady. And so as things start to dip, I'm going to buy a little harder on the tokens I want to hold. And if the opportunity I'm looking for doesn't quite present itself, well, I've been leveraging a time-based DCA, or I've allocated my funds elsewhere. Going back to where I started with today's conversation, some aspect of it is it doesn't have to be an or, it can be an and. I can like this token and that token and convince I'm going to make that token. Just make sure you adjust your risk and position sizing accordingly. So that's a total market cap. One of the other charts I've been looking at, shout out to Nate and Zenith and Boogie and some other folks I've been talking about with this, is crypto total market cap excluding the top 10. Why do I like that one? Well, it gets rid of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, stables. So to me, this is potentially a better indicator of the rest of the altcoin market. Stay tuned for some folks that will inevitably be, I think we got a partner stream coming up at the end of the month. Hint, hint, more to come on that one. I won't name any names yet. I'm going to try to keep that ace up my sleeve. And a wild SJ appears. Thanks for the support, SJ. I had the opportunity to have a real intriguing and entertaining conversation with SJ at the bar about a multitude of topics. And also had a great breakfast with Zenith while I was out there at the Pulse Chain Tour. I think I showed Zenith my favorite breakfast spot. We were actually talking about some of the different technical elements of blockchain, such as like settlement layers, currency layers, transaction speed. It was pretty interesting. And that's going to tie into the main topic of the day in a few minutes here. So again, I like to look at the total market cap, excluding the top 10, as potentially an overall useful indicator for some of the other aspects of potential market performance and market health. Again, stay tuned. Got some special guests coming up in about a couple weeks where we'll be talking about this chart a little bit more and some other things that we're observing and keeping track of. All right. So this is one that jumped out at me as far as another topic. And this is potentially the biggest bank heist in history is coming. And what this is related to in the case, this is an editorial by Linda Zheng on this one over on CoinDesk. And the argument here is that a number of banks are tokenizing financial assets, but they are using basically private or more private permission networks compared to decentralized blockchains. What's the benefit of decentralization in this case? Well, more validators, harder to control network. Whereas for these permission networks, potentially it's going to be a much smaller group of validators under a much tighter, smaller set of controllers in that respect. So as potentially so in this particular case, referencing a report by Michael Shu, hopefully I've said that correctly, over $108 trillion in assets are managed and under the management of the top 4 custodian banks. And so by not being on a permissionless, more decentralized blockchain, it is more rife for potential hijacking, control, and attack. And so if these banks continue down this path, then it is conceivable we see the all-time greatest financial heist in history in our lifetimes is the basic argument here. So it gets into aspects of, look, should it be on a permissionless blockchain or permission blockchain? And what it really comes down to is the overall security and control around that. So decentralized blockchains, in summary, harder to hack compared to permission ones. The protocols only need to hack the admin keys or find a way to get into some of these smaller or lower count attack vectors, and then potentially they have control of everything. So really interesting. Maybe that's going to be a Netflix special somewhere later on in our lives where we get to see the all-time greatest bank heist on that front. So before getting to today's main, let's say, concept and topic of the day, I did want to come back to the guitar side of things, since in a prior life I was a professional musician. So when I started today's stream, I was playing my number one. Or I should say current number one. So this particular one, this is my Charvel Pro Mod San Dimas double humbucker hardtail guitar. It's quite the mouthful. They have a terrible naming convention. I really wish they would come up with cooler, more straightforward names. From an engineering perspective, cool, I can look at the model number and make a lot of sense out of it. So in this case, again, it's the San Dimas Style 1 HHT. HH standing for two humbuckers, HT standing for hardtail. You'll see a lot of their guitars, or a lot of guitars for like the more shreddy type or hard rock type of guitars. They have different tremolos. Technically, it's a vibrato unit on it. I generally prefer hardtails, and that's simply for tuning stability. I know stuff like Floyd Roses and the like, they offset it with locking nuts and the like. I'd like a little certain level of simplicity in my gear, so I don't have to manage with a lot of the bullshit that ends up going with it, especially if you break a string. You break a string on some of those systems and the whole tuning is shot, and basically you better have a backup guitar. If I break a string on a hardtail, I can work around it without too much of an issue. Let's see here. Other notable specs: 25.5-inch scale length. It's basically a Fender style guitar on that one. Compound fingerboard radius, where it's 12 down here and 16 up here, so it flattens out. Makes it real easy to play some of the more speedy stuff. 22 jumbo frets. I like taller frets. When you actually play guitar like at a fairly quick cadence, or for myself, I have a pretty light touch. I don't actually make contact with the wood. I'm basically just pressing the string down to the fret just enough to hold the note down. Let's see, Seymour Duncan humbuckers. It's got a 59 in the neck and a JB in the bridge. Push-pull pot on the volume, so it'll split the coils on this. Three-way pickup. Yeah, here's my other thing. When it is a hardtail, it's a string-through body, similar to a lot of Fender Telecasters. And real quickly, kind of sounds like this. So Charvel really made a huge name for themselves in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, by doing basically similar to people would hot rod certain cars and the like. They were doing hot rod guitars. And in a lot of ways, Eddie Van Halen really put them on the map. I know he had the opportunity to get to know Wayne Charvel. Wayne provided him some of the bodies for his most iconic guitars. So yeah, shout out to Wayne Charvel and the like. And so the strings are pretty low, and it makes it easy to play like a lot of that Eddie Van Halen tapping type stuff. All that fun stuff. Anyway, so yeah, that's my current number one guitar. I like to rotate them from time to time. Lately, this one's just been calling my name a lot, so it's been working out. All right, let's get back to a little more crypto. Okay, so final topic of the day I wanted to talk about here. Obviously, this week we had the Denkun update, and that's gonna have, or already has had, some effect on L2 fees and the like. So I see SJ used to hang out in San Dimas. Yes. San Dimas, is it San Dimas? San Dimas High School Football Rules. I think it's the Bill and Ted reference on that one. Anyway, L2 fees from the Denkun update. We saw a huge reduction in L2 fees compared to mainnet. I don't know if anyone else here has been experiencing any, let's say, minor reduction in L1 fees. I certainly haven't seen it as it relates directly to the Denkun update. What I have seen is price go down, activity go down. So I've definitely seen some reduction on that aspect of it. But we had this update, and one of the things that I found as I was skimming through crypto Twitter, if you're not on crypto Twitter or whatever, X, take your pick, like, what do you call an X post, right? X post, that sounds like cross post to me. Doesn't really flow off the tongue. Whereas Twitter, tweet, I don't know. I guess it's just going to stick with me. Anyway, assets moving from L1 to L2s. So in this particular case, this is from the folks over at Token Terminal. They were showing some different bridge deposits moving over to some of these L2 networks. Arbitrum leading the way, OP mainnet, Blast, and the like. So interesting. And this started getting some wheels spinning for me. And one of the things I'm kind of wondering is, how does this potentially fracture liquidity and potential future moves? I'm not aware of any sort of slick, easy, let's say multi L2, cross L2, like DEX type aggregator. Maybe somebody's got one. I certainly haven't gone looking for one in that respect. But where I'm headed with this is, people I think are going to potentially move where either one, they've got the coolest green candles, or two, it's going to be where the most liquidity might be for any number of reasons, because there's more funds and more financial firepower to ultimately leverage. So out of curiosity, I saw this from Token Terminal. I said, okay, pretty interesting. Let me go eyeball some stuff on DeFi Llama. Pulled up the total value locked on all chains for some of the different L2s, Arbitrum leading the way. What kind of surprised me at the moment was how well Blast was performing relatively. I have done less than nothing on Blast, so if there's any sort of Blast expert out there, you're going to have to give me some intel on what's going on over there. Optimism base at 8.87, which is going to tie into my final threads of the day, and then the rest of them down the line. So basically, Arbitrum's melting faces and dropping warheads on foreheads, at least as far as TVL, and then Blast, Optimism, and then down here we've got Base, and I'm going to say then there's everyone and everything else, and we'll see how that plays out over time. So looking at the potential, what I'll call compartmentalization and fracturing of liquidity, which I do anticipate to potentially drive how different people will move throughout the ecosystem. And like, one of the things I started thinking to myself was, okay, for potential majority on ramp this go around, slash maybe some sort of proxy indicator for how the market is, when does the music start slowing down on that aspect of it, would be, one, is Coinbase turning into the biggest on ramp in the world? I got to do some more digging on some of the metrics surrounding this, but it is something I am thinking about. Where is the Coinbase position in the app stores? I know last cycle it was number one, as people were looking for certain solutions and looking for ways to on-ramp into crypto. I gotta believe that the primary domestic funnel in the US, I'm a little less convinced that it is the dominant global one. However, as I was flipping through some information for tonight's stream, they had indicated that they have made massive inroads all over the world on this. They've obtained licenses in a multitude of additional countries with local fiat on and off ramps. They expanded Coinbase One from just the US to 38 additional countries. You can see that they have USDC in 110 countries, staking in 110 plus countries, on and off ramps for Coinbase Wallet. So Coinbase out there killing it, just planting tentacles and seeds all over the place. And hey, look, it's everyone's favorite, Sailor Moon. I'm trying to be less poor, Michael, so appreciate the words of motivation on that one. But in this particular case, this expert called Coinbase the Amazon of crypto. And, I was getting Amazon delivery here a short minute ago for some flea collars and like anti-tick collars for my dog, since it's getting warm out there. And with that comes all sorts of delightful insects that will like to latch on to him. Anyway, it's an on-ramp into the asset classes, according to this analyst and expert on this front. And they got in early. And I actually remember buying my first bit of Ethereum through Coinbase in 2017. In retrospect, I wish I had bought a lot more and gone in the paint a lot harder. But hey, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Some lessons are best learned through pain on that front. So they're continuing to see a whole bunch of growth on that front. And that, coupled with the fact that, okay, they've got the app, they've made all these inroads into a multitude of countries around the world, makes me think that potentially they're going to be the dominant player as far as centralized exchanges globally. Maybe not overnight, maybe not right away, but forthcoming on that front. So in summary, taking a look at a few different things here. One, the debt just continues to be out of control. Two is, Bitcoin halving's around the corner. Three, we've got our retrace looking like it's kicking in. So I like to buy on red days if possible. However, I personally also weigh that against the possibility that the retrace may simply bring us to a higher low, and your optimal buying time could have already passed you by. This is why I run a time-based DCA as well as loading up some cannonballs on the side. 4, we also talked a bit about, in this particular case, the potential biggest bank heist in history, which would be cool. If I did it, you will never hear from me again. I'm going to disappear. I'll move to like Southeast Asia, change my name to John Lee. Good luck. And 5, we were talking a little bit about L2s and potential, let's say, compartmentalization and fracturing of liquidity. Maybe Coinbase with Base and their on-ramps ends up changing the face of the game. They've certainly got a tremendous amount of firepower. As we saw on DeFi Llama, you've got Base sitting at around just shy of 9% of TVL on that. So that's something I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on. I know Coinbase, they had some upgrades to their stock ratings and recommended buys, I think out to 150 and the like. So more on that to come. Anyway, appreciate everyone tuning in this evening. I hope everyone had a great time the other week at the Pulse Chain Tour, and go buy crypto, build your bags out, escape. There's a mechanism to get out of here and change things for yourself and for everyone else. Appreciate everyone tuning in this night or tonight, and hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll see you all soon.